City Council has returned from executive session at 8:17. We will move to new business item number 11, consideration and possible action. Do we have a motion on item number 11? Ricosa?
Mayor, I make the motion for a public reprimand of council member Alex Kamkar for the release of confidential information related to the city manager search to unauthorized third parties.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I'd like to make a couple of comments before we get too deep into this discussion. But before I do, I'd like to invite City Attorney Darren Coker to kind of lay out our own ethics policy. I wish Woody's stand was down. I can't see him. Our ethics policy as it relates to confidential information, and then Robert's Rules of Order for why we're having this discussion tonight.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, council members. The city's ethics ordinance contains a provision that does prohibit the disclosure of confidential information, and that would be confidential information, obviously, to third parties that the council receives, whether that be information in writing or whether that be just information that you receive through discussions in executive session, whatever that may be. Okay. In addition to Section 281 of our ethics ordinance, there's a provision. We have a council rules of order that the council has adopted, and part of that also adopted the Robert's Rules of Order. That governs the manner in which the council conducts business at city council meetings. And one of the things that Robert's Rules of Order establishes is that it also stands for the fact that executive session, or depending on the type of board that's being governed by that, but in our case, executive sessions, private discussions that take place as authorized by state law. When those discussions take place, the only way confidential information can be released is through a consent of the majority of the governing body that's having those discussions. Otherwise, those discussions cannot be released. And then, in addition to that, the council members, as a result of that, pursuant to sections 926 and 927 of Robert's Rules, that have the ability to adopt or take action against an individual who violates that.
Okay.
So, I hope that answers your question. I'll be happy to answer questions if you need clarifications.
It does. It just, specifically about making sure that we do have an ethics policy on how we handle certain pieces of information and how we do it and do it right. So I'd like to just take a moment and kind of lay out for the public what happened, and I'd like to then kick it to Member Kamkar for defense and comment, and any other member of council that would like to weigh in on this. And again, in the essence of transparency, we've tried to be as transparent as possible. Obviously, when we get into a city manager search, there's certain things that we can't do for a certain amount of time, mainly because applicants who put their name into the hat for something like this, their name becoming public could be detrimental to their existing position, which is why historically, and I'll just kind of talk historically, nothing gets released to the public until we have finalists. And generally speaking, again, a city would give those finalists about 24 hours notice that it's going public. So that way they have the opportunity to go to their city councils or city manager, whoever, that they're looking at or that they work for, and say, heads up, you're going to see my name in a finalist position here in the next day or so, and want to let you know this is what's going on. So, and in this particular case, we didn't get there. I also want to make sure in the discussions and anything that gets laid out tonight, I want to make it abundantly clear that this discussion is about a member of council. It has nothing to do with our police department. It has nothing to do with the rank and file of our police department. It has nothing to do with the command staff at police. In fact, It has to do with a couple of members of our police department and leaders of the Pearland Police Officers Association, but it has really nothing to do about them. All of this is about the release of information that should have, the release that should have never happened. And if that not happened, none of the other individuals would even be in this discussion. So with that, I'm just going to lay out facts of what happened and then throw it open to the member and any other members. If you'll put my supplemental up, I'd like to walk through this. On April the 23rd, which was a week ago or 2 weeks ago yesterday, there were two emails sent out from Member Kamkar, one to the president of the PPOA, and then vice president of PPOA, and then about 3.5 hours later to another member of our. I have a hard time opening it up. There we go. So, and I've done my best to make sure that we've redacted certain email addresses from this, from the public view. As you can see here, on the 23rd, an email was sent. The topic or the attachment was Pearland, Texas CM semifinalist book. So it was a 107-page document that was released to them. And you can see here, even the note down below, please advise of any landmines regarding police. And this was sent from a private email to private emails. So this was not on city server, city emails. And I don't know, what's meant by landmines, but typically landmines are hidden. Typically landmines are under, so you got to dig for them. So I'm not sure if that was meant to go and search or seek out information. Next slide. You'll see about 3.5 hours later, another member of our police department received an email with the same attachments. And this time at the bottom, you'll see Mr. Kamkar listed in the body of his email, did not come from me. So he knew at that point that this was not information he should be releasing, but did in fact release it. And then ultimately what happened to it is really a lot of some of the discussion that needs to take place. So on the 24th, Monday, 2 weeks ago, City Council in exec session had narrowed our search to two. We had an internal candidate as well as an external candidate. At that point in time, we had 5 in the semifinalist book, but one self-withdrew, never completed the work, but had gotten a job elsewhere, so never completed that work. We had 2 others. We did not select them in the finalist positions. Council that night decided we've got an election coming up in a week or a week and a half or whatever, and let's sit right now. Let's don't issue our finalist. Let's basically go dark and sit idle until we got through the elections. We did discuss with our internal candidate some contractual things. And so we were doing that in the background as we were waiting for the elections to be over, a night like tonight to come in and decide, are we moving forward with our finalist or what are we doing, okay? The next day, the consultant reached out to me with some concerns because a member of, Texas Municipal Police Officer Association, TMPA, had reached out to the other finalist, and his words, not ours, his words, someone contacted the TMPA on behalf of the Pearland Police Officer Association to do a background check on him. So clearly his name was out there, which gave him great concern because we hadn't named our finalist yet, and he's in a position, do I tell my council or not? Where am I in this process? The next day, I did receive a phone call from our consultant with SGR and stating that the candidate had withdrawn. One of his stated reasons was, 2 things. One, this kind of compromise being out there, he couldn't wait until the elections were over for this to be disclosed or the finalists to be disclosed. And he certainly wasn't ready to tell his counsel until the finalist list was out. And then secondly, he knew we had an internal candidate, so he, I guess, mitigated his risk and decided to withdraw, leaving us with a lone candidate at that point. Lots of discussion had gone through. I know the consultant reached out to HR to let them know officially of the withdrawal and those types of things. And it went through the channels, and we were trying to figure out how in the world somebody on behalf of the PPOA was searching and doing this. And of course, it took several days, but we knew this is what had taken place. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So I'm going to show for the members of the public the first three slides. The first three slides in this book. That's the only thing I'm allowed to show you, because everything after that starts getting into names and proprietary information. And you can see very up front, very first page, confidential, red letters, all caps, underline. Next page. Confidential information, so it says it on the second page. All contents herein are proprietary information owned by SGR, and any release of names or other information contained herein can reasonably be predicted to cause damage to the persons contained herein. And again, it's owned by SGR. As Mr. Coker had mentioned, any release of that would had to have been the whole body getting together to decide whether or not we could release something. Third page, here's a letter to myself and council members, again, confidential and proprietary. Pleased to provide you with this confidential briefing book on the semifinalist candidates to become Pearland next city manager. Please recall that this information is still highly confidential. So 3 pages in, and after this, we actually have an opinion that's working its way through the Attorney General's office whether or not we can release the rest of this information. I know several members of the media and others have asked for it, and we've sent up to the AG's office to give us their opinion on that. It wasn't until about May 1st that we received emails from one of our police officers that he had been contacted by Member Kamkar, and then the next day on May 2nd, we confirmed the 2 emails that I had sent before. And so, again, this is about accountability for actions of one. This is not, and I'm going to stress as long as I can, this is not about the police officers involved. They didn't solicit this information. It was given to them. It's not something they went and asked for. Certainly, one member went further and took it to TNPA, but had the first act never happened, second act doesn't happen. The last thing I'll say, we have the best men and women in our police department. They do the best job every single day. They are dedicated servants to our constituents and our taxpayers and our residents. And I don't want any of this to have a reflection on them, from our chief all the way down to anybody in the police department. And that goes for our members of the PPOA. The rank and file of the PPOA, as well as the officers of the PPOA, they didn't ask for this. So I want to make sure that it's abundantly clear. We support law enforcement. We support public safety. We do it through our budget. We do it through our time. We do it through our cheerleading them, as we did tonight. And so I want to make sure that we separate that out, and it's about the actions of one. And with that, I'm going to end my comments. What I would like to do is Member Kamkar to have his opportunity, any other members to speak, and then we'll wrap this up.
Mayor, I have the floor. Okay. All right. I appreciate all of these items. It feels very much like a witch hunt, and that's all right. I'm happy to be chased around. It's been most of my life. But I want to talk about the process, because we talk a lot about confidential, and there was anything but confidentiality in this entire process. Let me lay a couple of these items out for you. So the Bella Vita forum that happened in March, we literally had candidates by name that individual who was not even in the candidate pool. By name. How does somebody know somebody who's not in the candidate pool by name? How does that tell 70, 80, 90 people in a public setting by name? If I recall, you were at that location at that time and heard that. How does that Mr. Have that information? Didn't come from me. So if the idea that the veil of confidentiality was pierced long before that. Let me read a second one. At the Pearland Chamber Forum, which was what? I want to say the beginning of April, so another 30 days forward. The person names the assistant city manager by name, not by name, says their role. How did they even know that they were in the pool? And not come from me. So the idea that there was confidentiality here is complete nonsense. Let me tell you something as we go further into April. I had a gentleman, we recently had a campaign election's over now, who I had never met, who's 90 plus years old, doesn't drive, doesn't text, has a caretaker. That person by name mentioned Mr. Epperson as somebody that I needed to support for the city manager's role. How does that individual know that he's even in the applicant pool? The idea that there's any confidentiality in this process is absolute nonsense. The process was right, wrong, or indifferent, slanted towards the internal candidate from pretty much the get-go. We never had one external candidate come into the city of Pearland to answer one question. We started negotiating, as you mentioned in your layout, prior to even talking to any one person in City Hall or in the city of Pearland. The idea that there was a process that was open and transparent and confidential, the facts do not bear that out. Even in your layout, you acknowledge that. What I will say is this. The Pearland Police Officers Association did not do anything wrong, but I will tell you here, clear as day, the last city manager was bad for police, period. There's somebody who lied about wages, lied about getting wage increases, punted on those repeatedly. And the reality is, I'm not speaking for anybody else, I did not want to see them kicked around by a person or persons that we don't know. I don't think Mr. Epperson is the person that kicks those guys around, but I don't know. I sure as hell don't know one of these other 4 people that you guys did not show on the screen. So what I would just tell you is this. I will gladly take a reprimand. That doesn't bother me, but I would like to expose the hypocrisy that members of the audience were members on this council. This particular gentleman was at the Bella Vita Forum when the internal candidate hadn't even applied and was essentially being rallied for. You were on the stage when that actually happened, and I don't see a reprimand or a discussion of, well, where was the confidentiality? Because it didn't happen. So I'm more than happy to take my lumps if supporting the police and wanting to make sure that they get a good city manager as part of that is wrong. I don't want to be right. I'll take the lumps. Let's call the question. Thank you.
I just want to say that I thought Trent was the best candidate. The way we're saying it, it's like we were left with Trent. I don't want it to sound like that. He was the best candidate in my eyes all along. So just to say we were left with one applicant doesn't sound right. And to say it wasn't confidential, if Mr. Epperson told people he was applying or told people he was part of the pool, that's not breaking confidentiality, is it? If he told somebody himself that he was an applicant, is it possible that what Mr. Kamkar is alluding to is something Mr. Epperson spoke to those people and said he was an applicant? So, I mean, there's no way to know that. So,
But you're reprimanding me for breaking confidentiality. Just remember that.
I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting here right now. I'm giving my opinion. I just wanted to be clear about Mr. Epperson's hiring. I wanted to be clear that he was the best candidate in my eyes. We weren't left with him. Okay, and that's all right now. Thank you.
Any other comments?
If you don't mind, I'm going to keep my comments at a very high level because I think it really bears that distinction, because I don't want to get into the weeds necessarily. I've just scratched down a few words here. I just want to read. Talk about accountability. We talk about teamwork. We talk about trust. Those are all pretty important words as we go along and we move along this body. We have conversations in executive session. It's important to me that those conversations that we have in executive session stay in executive session, and they allow us to continue to make decisions for the city of Pearland. So the specific information that was released directly affected the professionalism in which the city of Pearland conducts its business, with those we contract with, and the trust they have in us as we work towards and for the greater good of Pearland. These actions altered the defined and agreed upon action plan between the city of Pearland, SGR, and the remaining 5 candidates, and we could have affected the employment of these other candidates. We won't even know the extent of what's actually happened for weeks to come. So at the end of the day, the city of Pearland, in the way that they conduct their actual business, looks really bad in the public sector and for the state of Texas. It's a shame. That's it.
Koza?
Thank you, Mayor. Member Kamkar, a little under a year ago, he posted a supplemental to one of our agenda items by the Pew Research Center titled Americans' View of Government: Decades of Distrust, Enduring Support for Its Role. 65% say most political candidates run for office to serve their own personal interests. Fast forward to today, your actions prove this article's content to be true. We have before us 2 emails where you sent confidential and proprietary information related to the city manager search to separate third parties. One email subject line is Kamkar-CM packet with the content of "did not come from me. Best Alex." The second email subject line is Kamkar-city manager packet and states, "Team, please see this packet. I know it's short notice. Please advise of any landmines." The first email clearly shows that you knew what you were doing was wrong. This information was to be used solely by council to aid in our city manager search. In my wildest dreams, I don't know why anyone would release this information to unauthorized recipients except for self-interest. This release of confidential information has broken the trust of your fellow council members, city staff that was involved in the process, and the citizens of Pearland. Member Kamkar, once trust is broken, it's hard to regain. How can Pearland City Council properly function and serve the best interests of our citizens when we have a member that has purposely violated our rules with regards to confidential information? You clearly broke the oath you took when you assumed the responsibilities of this office.
You done? I'm sorry. Oh, just a second. I want everybody opportunity to.
Yeah, Member Koza, I
One thing I'm
appreciate.
going to try to be as fair.
Yeah, that's fair. I appreciate it. We talk about who we serve. It's been very consistent. I serve the citizens. I don't have a city contract. That's a difference between you and me. I've proposed the hardest ethics ordinance in the state of Texas, and then you promptly watered it down. So I'm real happy to run on that record over and over and over. Like I said, I'll take it as a badge of honor to be reprimanded by you. That doesn't bother me in the least bit. If supporting the police and wanting them to have a city manager that supports them is wrong, I don't want to be right.
Member Kamkar, what you did was wrong. We agreed as a legislative body here to change that. You were on the losing end of it, and if you're sore about that, I'm sorry about that. But
Losing
as
what?
far as this,
Losing what?
Well, sir, I have the floor.
Losing what?
We took a vote, and you were on the losing end of that vote. That's what I'm saying. I don't need you to question me while I have the floor. Okay? So you did this yourself, not any one of us sitting at this body. You did. Not me, and I, right here, take this seriously.
I just wish when you quote my articles I post about public service and serving your own personal interests, I wish you cared about the citizens and took back your city contract. If you really, really want to dictate to me about serving my own interests, I would like you to meet the standard that I'm at. I don't have a city contract right now.
Sir, you have let information go, okay? We are subject to confidential information on public things that happen here on property that you, also in the development business, could give information that I don't know about. I recuse myself each and every time according to the law and the regulations of the city of Pearland. You, somehow or another, don't like those laws. That's the laws that we operate under, and I operate ethically each and every time.
You did water down the ethics reform that was proposed.
No, sir, we made it stronger.
At your first meeting, you watered down that ethics reform. And
no, sir, we made it stronger.
Anyways, like I said,
Can we
Mayor,
stay on task? And
We're going to stay. We're going to stay.
I just want to say one more thing. I would love to call the question. If supporting the police is wrong, I don't want to be right.
I'm going to reiterate, this has nothing to do with our police department. It has nothing to do with the fine members of the PPOA. It has everything to do with the irresponsible behavior with confidential information. And I'll state this, you even stated it publicly. We can find the tape and even rerun it. You even said there was a candidate that ran around and talked about Mr. Epperson's name before he was a candidate. So at that point in time, it wasn't even confidential. Wasn't a candidate. There wasn't a candidate pool for us to even see and talk about. And who, what, and where. It was speculation from one end of town to the other.
So why are you hitting me?
What?
So why are you hitting me? If the candidate that the whole process was slanted to wasn't even in the pool, but there was a lobby effort on behalf of that person, I could tell you that is by definition not confidential then.
Well, first off, I don't know anything about a lobbying effort. Secondly, your own emails were meant to divert away from city emails. You put it in a private email, sending it to private emails, not their pearlandtx.gov emails. That in and of itself is an act to go around the system. That in and of itself, you knew. Now, does somebody out there say things or inadvertently? Yes. We thought this. Was it inadvertently? Was it left somewhere? The emails are different. The emails put members of our PPOA and others shining this light on them unnecessarily. And again, you're dying on the sword. If I'm going to be, wrong, I'd rather be right. We all support the men and women in Pearland Police.
So let's call the question.
There's other members that will have something to say, Mr. Kamkar. There's people who have something to say tonight. You started to say something.
Well, I just wanted to help us stay on task, but I guess I will say that, Darren gave us a little talking to not too long ago, and I think that was in the 5 years I've been on council. I mean, there have been instances where obviously people have said things to other people about executive session. Generally, it's comments that we make to one another, things like that, but maybe not the information itself, the topic of the discussion. But usually it's, blowing off steam about something, the way somebody said something, or they said a personal comment or whatever it is. But I think it was reiterated, and so, we had that discussion, and it was, drilled into us again. It's important that what we do say, we give ourselves the opportunity to speak a little more freely sometimes. And Darren, you didn't touch on this earlier, but I think it is important because, people listen to this, that sometimes people will ask me, what do you guys talk about? And say, well, I thought all city business is supposed to be public, but there are very specific reasons why we go into that back room and have these discussions. You know, whether it's, you know, talking about real estate, things like that. We don't want people to jump in there and all of a sudden cost the city a lot more money. I think with this particular instance, rather, to stay, you know, on topic, to me, I really wanted to be able to, whenever people asked me about the decision that we made to, you know, put Trent in the position of city manager, that we could say we did follow through. We tried our best. We went through and vetted every candidate to the best of our ability. And I made, you know, comment, even it's like, you know, I want to make sure that he's our guy. You know, Laney was sold on him, but, you know, I wanted to say, I wanted to make sure that he rose to the top on his own merit, and we gave him the opportunity to do that. I'm frustrated that we didn't get that opportunity. And, you know, obviously it was partially because of the release of this information. I think the other candidate did not say that was the sole reason. Yeah, I know, almost said it. Oops. But it's still, I would have liked to have seen that, because, you know, I want the public to feel like we really did put in the effort. And I think that up to the point to where the other candidate withdrew his application, that we did. And we were prepared to go through with that. We were prepared to have, you know, those two candidates come in and really explain why they're the best for the city of Pearland, which ultimately should be the only reason that we make the decision.
Right.
And I think just again to stay on topic here, obviously it's tarnished our reputation to a certain degree. And I think, again, it's not the only time, but I think this reinforces why it is important for us to have, you know, this, I want to call them these secret, you know, discussions, but there's real honest repercussions that can come from the release of the information. And, you know, I would want anyone who applies to the city of Pearland to feel like, you know, they are protected in that process. If they're working with another city, things like that. I mean, we do our best, and hopefully we'll learn from this opportunity. But this was definitely an error, and, you know, I think if Member Kamkar, you're willing to you know, take the reprimand, you seem to understand that you know, an error was made, and hopefully we can come out of this not fighting with one another or pointing fingers, but rather looking for an opportunity to move forward, to strengthen the bond, repair the potential trust issues that may have been created amongst ourselves and the public, and let's just try to move forward. I just don't want to. I want us to stay on topic, stay on task, and not create a back and forth here.
Well said. Well said. And that's my hope. This is about accountability. It's not about anything other than that. And it needs to start and end here at the dais, and we move on. And if somebody else in here, and you can find where they've released confidential information this way, bring it up. That's what accountability is about. The members the members of this community, the residents in this community, expect us to hold our staff accountable. We've done that recently. We terminated a city manager. And we should be expecting to hold each other accountable. If we've done something outside of our policies, we need to hold each other accountable. And so I can't tell you why someone else may have seen something or heard something. But again, by own admission, this was out there, not out there. We have a candidate for city council talking about a name before the names were even a list of names, before there was anything even confidential. I think anybody that knew anything knew Mr. Epperson was probably going to put in for the job the day he got the interim, you know, tag. So again, I don't know if anything else was released. We know for sure this was. With that, I've heard from everyone. Member Koza, one last time. I'll give you one wrap up, and then, oh, you got something. That's right. Let's go to Mr. Carbone first. Sorry.
I mean, there was clearly ethics violation, and just the hypocrisy of saying we tightened up ethics. Well, that's great. The the ethics violations were broken at the state level. And I haven't, it's frustrating because it feels like you just double down and saying, you know what, sure, I'll take it. Yeah, I support PD. And that's frustrating as all get out up here. Not even saying, man, I'm looking back, I regret. No, it's, I'm going to go down with PPOA. And that's so frustrating. That would be like PPOA going out and any one of the officers doing an illegal search and seizure. So, we found the drugs, let's arrest them. No. I mean, the ends don't justify the means. Right. And when we start heading down that path, it's a slippery slope. And if we don't hold ourselves accountable, how can we hold anybody else, the city manager, any of our staff accountable? And that's the frustrating part.
Let me worry about that real quick. Mayor Pro Tem, you're a member that I respect quite a bit. You've been on this council for quite some time, and you're not prone to flights of fancy or emotional outbursts. I don't disagree with what you've said, but the part that I'm struggling with is it appeared to be an open conversation prior to us even getting these packets. The fact that people are talking in chamber forums in public on individuals by name who weren't even applicants, how did they know? I'm not saying that there was something nefarious, but I'm just saying the process was not as Ziploc tight as you, let me.
And I'll answer your question.
And so the point I'm just trying to illustrate is that's frustrating because right now some guys want to throw the book at me, and deservedly so. I think the other part to me that frustrates me to all get out, and I guess the process is over so we can discuss it, we never had a finalist interview.
Right.
There was no woman ever considered. Nobody set forth in the city to answer a damn question. We started negotiating with the internal person prior to us doing anything else. We wanted to start the process. And I heard repeatedly from the mayor and from others, the process confers legitimacy. I 100% endorse and sign off on that. And we short-circuited the process, it seems like at least twice. There was some members who didn't even want to engage in the process. And I'm not going to criticize them for that. I'm just going to say it seems like the process for them was something that was a bother, as opposed to this is a very serious responsibility. This person hires and fires everybody else and manages a city. And so the part that I'm frustrated with is that I can take ownership for waiving attorney-client privilege without further discussion. I can take ownership of that, but nobody else is taking ownership around some of these other issues. And I get to be the scapegoat. And that's fine. It's not going to be the first or the last time that I've been scapegoated at this dais, and that's fine with me. I've learned to be very comfortable with that. But it's just my vantage point. You were here during the times where certain members of our staff who wear a uniform were told they would get raises and they didn't happen, or they would get studies and it didn't happen, or there would be certain resources that would come and it didn't happen. You were here when those things happened. I'm not telling a story around that. I don't want to see that happen again. And that's an honest concern. I'm not trying to make it like the sole reason, but these folks are dealing in an enhanced environment in criminal activity than they've ever had. And the reality is the border that we have to our north is never going to change. You know what? I will apologize to the members of the body for the stress I put you through. It's not fun. It's not easy. Probably caused you more brain damage than you'd like to have. But the reality is this: the importance of what the questions possibly could answer. I think we're important to ask. I can't control what happens after it gets to Austin or wherever it got to. And it clearly gave us a situation that was not ideal. But I would tell you this.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I understand you had to deal with more phone calls than I had to deal with. Let's put it that way. But what I would tell you is this. If we're insistent on trying to do a reprimand, that's fine. I'll own it. I'll take it. It'll be on my resume. And I'm fine with that. But I would just tell you that there are gaps in process. There's other people having discussions. I mean, the 95-year-old man advocating for that gentleman should not have happened. How does a 95-year-old man who doesn't even use his own damn phone, when I meet this person for the first time, tell me you need to hire Trent Epperson? How the hell does he even know? Respectfully.
First off, he knows Trent. He's been in this community for
Don't
60
disagree,
years.
but it's
He knows
confidential at that point.
It's not when he asked me about Trent before Trent ever even put in an application. I'm just saying, it's not a confidential application.
But I'm getting reprimanded for confidentiality breaks. That's what I'm getting reprimanded for.
That wasn't confidential with somebody speculating on whether or not you got an assistant go and do.
That particular person met me at the end of April. He was in the applicant pool by that point.
He met with me in early March
Just
and asked it. Again, we didn't have an applicant pool at that point. And my comment to him was,
details matter.
it does, and facts matter. We just came out of a campaign. Facts matter. And so at the end of the day, my comment to him when he asked me, he goes, "You've got a perfectly good assistant city manager right there. Go hire him." My comment to him was, I don't even know if he's going to apply. Because at that point, we didn't have any applications, right? And if he does, there's a process that we go through, right? That's my comment, okay? But if you can find where somebody detailed confidential information out, bring it forward. Again, that's what we're doing. And as Mayor Pro Tem said, the ends does not justify the means, ever. Right is right, wrong is wrong. And what was done here was wrong. It put members of the PPOA and our police department in a predicament that they didn't ask for. And it's wrong to them. You need to apologize to them for putting them into it, not only here in this body, but those members, putting them in that situation. Mr. Koza, you asked for it, and we're going to close this down.
So as far as our search goes, it was truncated by these emails right here. We had narrowed it down to 2 candidates, and we had postponed it. Yes, sir, we did. We had postponed it until after the election, and when that happened, a member withdrew. I was looking forward to interviewing the other candidate that we had it down to because I felt we had 2 strong candidates. I'm sure the other folks on this member at this dais felt the same way because we did not get offered the ability to make a decision. I would have hated had Trent not accepted this offer, have to go back out because it would have looked bad on us, the city, to be able to hire a city manager after the way it was handled this time.
Mayor, may I say, there was a previous member of our council who once accused me of being obsessed with process. But as part of the process, just, for people who watch this, it was going to be that we were going to, for the finalists, involve, other department heads and the PPOA and so forth as well. So I think we would have gotten there as a body. And I guess my biggest disappointment is, again, not having the opportunity to really justify the decision that we made to the public when people come to me. It was immediate. As soon as that vote took place earlier, I already started getting, messages about that. And just, not really knowing what to tell people other than, we went through this process and, we had these 2 reasons, which are now on the record as why the other candidate withdrew. But I really hope to be able to put my finger on the reasons to say that our choice for city manager was clearly the best choice because we went through the process to vet him. So now he's just got to prove himself. So
Well said. Well said. Woody, you have your mic on.
Yeah, hey, that I guess there's enough discussion on that all the way around. And of course, for me, this is my last council meeting on here. So, but over the 18 years that I've been here on city council, there's been different things in discussion, but we handled them, in executive session, talk about it and bring different things up. And I think that's where a lot of things that we talk about should be done in executive session and caution ourselves on what we should talk about and out here in the front or in there and get it resolved one way or the other. So, but things like that after a period of time going to happen. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's going to happen, and this is not the first time it's ever happened. Different discussions, and people have different feelings on different things, and that's the reason we all work together as council members, because we always don't think the same, or think alike. But I think that a lot of the discussions that of those needs to be done in executive session, because there's no way that we can sit there for, like I have for 18 years, and not agree with everything that comes out.
Sure.
And it doesn't need to be out anywhere else. It's the way that we think about it in here. So I just say, this is a point that we've gone through and have had discussion on it. And I think, Mayor, that you need to, I won't be here, but you'll be able to set up something in the executive session and talk about that.
Absolutely. All right. Last comment.
When I was elected, I was hopeful that this would be a team working together. Every time I pray here, I pray for unity, and I'm still hopeful for that.
Absolutely.
I remember, Kamkar, you're deflecting and trying to make it like other people have done things wrong, and the emails were clearly something wrong. I think healing. I've always tried to support you. I want us to be a team. I want us to be a cohesive unit. I think it would go a long way for you to just say, "Hey, I screwed up. I'm sorry," and we can move on. That would go a long way. Deflecting and trying to make everybody else out to be the bad guy is not helpful for any of us. I just want to tell you that. I
already
You didn't.
said what I need to say.
You didn't. And I do think we should be a cohesive team of 7. I would really enjoy, or 8. Sorry, Mayor. I didn't mean to leave you out. I don't mean always agree, but I mean be able to argue and come back and be unified at the end of the day. And it would go a long way for you to just say, "I screwed up, I'm sorry." That would be very helpful. Thank you.
I waived the attorney-client privilege without prior permission. I apologize for that.
Much appreciated. All right. With that, Madam Secretary, we're going to call for the vote on the motion at hand.
Member Koza,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone,
Aye.
Member Kamkar,
Abstain.
Member Hernandez,
Aye.
Member Cade, Member Barry, Member Owens.
Aye.
The motion passes 6-0.
All right. With that, members of our public, thank you for indulging us as we had this very important discussion. With that, Trent Epperson is our new city manager. We wish him well. We need to celebrate that. We need to celebrate the opportunity to have you out with our whole staff, even set up a potential reception sometime so the public can get to know him. So with that, we're going to adjourn at 9:06.